Hello, brilliant entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 184, so you'll be able to find all the show notes and links that I mention in the episode at tashcorbin.com/184. Today, we're going to talk about how you can find more time for the important actions that are going to grow your business. So let's jump right on in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Okay, I'll admit it. I was being a little bit clickbaity. It's okay. I am going to help you find more time, but here's the big thing. You're not going to find time unless you make time. And it's similar to setting the intention of, I'm going to make $10,000 this year. I'm going to find it, right? Yes, we can find little bits of money here and there on the street. Maybe you'll find a $20 note tucked into a purse. But if you've got a big goal for your business, sitting back and waiting for time to magically appear in front of you, or hunting, finding time scattered here and there, is really sending out a sign to the universe and telling yourself, this isn't a priority for me. And so that's why, instead of telling yourself that you're going to find time, I want you to be mindful of your language and talk about how you're going to create time, how you're going to make time. And in this podcast episode, I'm going to give you 5 ways that you can create time in your business so that you can focus on those important actions that you know are going to create growth. Number 1 is schedule it in. So, for example, recording podcast episodes for me, I did have a long period of time in my business where it just never happened, and I was waiting for time to magically appear, and I would say, yes, I'll definitely do it sometime this week, but it wasn't scheduled in. Now, bonus points for me, I found a way not only to schedule it in, but to make it an awesome event and a fabulous day. I started my day today by getting my hair done at the hairdresser. So by having that appointment booked into my calendar to go and get my hair done, and then having 4 hours after that completely free to record videos, and it's in my calendar, video day, guess what? I'm recording podcast episodes. So whatever that thing is that you need to get done in your business, those important actions that you know are going to grow your business in the long term in particular, make sure that you schedule some time into your calendar for them. Now, I picked up a really beautiful rule about this from productivity expert Jo Bendel, and she talks about when you schedule things into your calendar, if you need to shuffle things around, create some boundaries around the shuffle. And my boundary around the shuffle is that if I shuffle something that's important for my business and it is a long-term growth strategy, I can shuffle within the week only. So if I've got something scheduled for a Tuesday and I get invited to go out to a fancy lunch and I decide, I'm going to go to lunch instead, I'm allowed to shuffle that appointment within the week, but I cannot delay it beyond Friday. So I create that boundary for myself, and that means that I'm more likely to hold that appointment. Now, it might not just be content creation that you've been meaning to schedule in. For some people, the big important thing that they're working on is a long-term project, like writing a book, or maybe it's actually getting out there and starting your business around having a day job. So sometimes you need to schedule in a daily habit. And when I'm first starting a habit, I give a lot of energy and attention to making sure I'm doing it every day. So I might set an alarm on my phone to go off at the same time each morning, and I keep that commitment with myself. Or I'll schedule it into my calendar. Now for me, I don't want to have 45 things scheduled into my calendar each day. It looks busy, it looks full, it totally overwhelms me, and then I end up doing nothing. So once that habit is embedded, I don't schedule it into my calendar anymore. I just keep that commitment to myself. And I only have things scheduled in or set alarms for things that I'm working on embedding. Once I've got it embedded, it's just part of my normal routine. So I work on embedding one new habit at a time. I don't go make a commitment to doing 10 new things every single day for the rest of my life, because guess what? There's going to come a day when I can't do all 10 of them, and instead of just doing 9 out of 10, I do none. So we want to make sure that we're scheduling it in and we're focusing on that one key thing at a time if it's building a daily habit. Okay, so number one tip is to schedule that time in. And in particular, I want to talk about short term versus long term. And that's tip number 2, is to have a balance between short term focused actions and long term focused actions in your week. So I want you to go and have a look at your week ahead, or maybe even have a little reflection on the week that has just been. And I want you to be honest with yourself. How often in your day were you focused on the short term, firefighting, what's in front of me, making cash this week actions versus the long-term growth of your business actions? And I must admit, when I first started my business, I did not think about long-term growth of my business for a very long time. I was so excited by and energized by focusing on the short term, things like posting in Facebook groups, getting responses immediately, making offers on my Facebook page, getting clients in for today, getting clients for the short term, getting money in the short term. And yes, when you're first starting your business, there's a very heavy emphasis on the short term. You want to get results as quickly as possible. But ultimately, we are building a long-term sustainable business. And part of that involves taking action that's going to reap rewards into the future. So similarly in your business, as in your personal life and in your finances, you're doing things in the short term, so bringing in money, maybe paying your bills in the short term. You also want to be setting aside some of that money for the longer term and some of those other larger scale things that you want to be doing with your money. And it's the same with your business. If you want to consistently grow your business and have consistent and sustainable cash flow, then we can't just keep staying focused on the short term. Those actions that you're probably putting off on your to-do list are the very things that if you start doing them consistently from now, will be reaping rewards for you into the future. Things like consistency of content and sending out your emails, consistently posting on your Facebook page instead of just always having short-term offers, doing things that are going to nurture your audience rather than constantly trying to sell something to them, projects that may take a little bit longer to come into fruition. Those sorts of things that are going to take a bit of time to get good at, like Facebook ads and paid advertising. Or maybe it's those things like, putting together a project for a course that you know you're not going to be launching it in the next 6 months, but you know that you want to be doing that next year or in a few months' time. Starting to set aside that time to look after future you. So that's tip number 2, is have a balance in your week between short-term focused actions and long-term focused actions, because those long-term focused actions are going to create time for you in the future. So it's a really beautiful one as well. Okay, number 3 is balancing your time between creating and consuming. And this is probably a big one for me as well. I am a lifelong learner. I love, doing courses, listening to audiobooks, reading books. I'm totally into tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. But I have a rule with myself that is for every hour I consume information, I spend an hour in creation time, because taking in all of this information and getting all this inspiration and getting all these ideas is wonderful, but ultimately I need to turn that into action. I need to implement something differently in my life or my business as a result of consuming that information. So something that you can do is use the apps on your phone that tell you how long you're spending online, maybe keeping track for a few weeks of how long you're going to other people's webinars, doing online courses, learning from others, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, reading books. Think about all the ways that you're consuming information, and then do you have balance with creation time? Giving yourself a good few hours every single week to get into the space of being in creation, whether that's creating content, creating your courses, creating new resources, creating your next 90 days of Facebook posts, get in that creative zone, creating new imagery to be using with your blog posts and with your posts on social media. Take time to take the things that you're learning and put them into action. And if you're finding yourself in consumption mode, you're over consuming and you're not in creation mode, then schedule some time in your calendar for creation mode and getting into that space. Number 4 is saying no. So it can be very tempting to say yes to every opportunity that comes your way. But as your business grows, and if you are putting off important tasks in your business that you know are going to be growing you in the long term, because you're saying yes to things that maybe aren't the right fit, or maybe it could work out to be something, then it's time to reassess the things that you're saying yes to and the things that you are saying no to. Now, there came a time for me when I was really wanting to do in-person events, and I said yes to every speaking opportunity that came my way. But as I've been growing my business and as I've been, really starting to refine the way that I work in my business, for me to actually travel to, prepare for, participate in, and then follow up a live speaking event, right now, it's not a big return on investment for me in my business compared to what I could be achieving if I stayed, got my stuff done, had a chilled out week, really looked after myself and focused on my current strategy in my business. So these days, I'm more discerning about the things that I might participate in. Things like free summits, group authoring projects, speaking events. These days in my business, I can generate so much more long-term and short-term income by saying no to a lot of those things. So I'm very discerning about the things that I say yes and no to. So it may just be that when opportunities come up for you, or when you're asked to do some things for people, you just give yourself permission to say, let me get back to you. And you can, with a bit of space and distance, think about what you are going to say yes and no to, and maybe be a little bit more discerning about the opportunity cost of saying yes to all of those things. Now, a big one for me was coffee chats. I spent a little bit of time feeling a bit lonely in my business recently, and so anyone who was messaging me or reaching out, I would say, let's just jump on and have a coffee on Zoom. It would be great to catch up with you anyway. And they were turning into almost free 30-minute coaching sessions, and the reason why I was doing it was because I was craving some human interaction. And when I did some journaling and I was thinking about, why I'm feeling a bit busy and my boundaries are feeling a bit blurry at the moment, I could see that I was actually creating this almost like this expectation amongst a certain group of people and amongst, people who were in my sort of inner circle, that I was always up for a coffee chat and they could reach out and I would always say yes and be available to them and be there for them. So for me, that became a little lesson in being clear on what is it, why is it that I really want to say yes to this? What is it that I'm trying to access? And is there a more effective way for me to access that particular feeling or experience? And so, nowadays I still definitely am very, open to having chats with people, and I offer to catch up with friends and all of that kind of thing, but I'm more mindful about creating that expectation amongst people. So learning to say, oh, look, sorry, I don't have time to catch up for a coffee this week. Let's pencil something in for the week after. Or saying, I'm really sorry, no, that's just not going to work for me. And I think the other thing is learning to say no in all different ways. So sometimes, I just say no flat out. I've had a bunch of people contact me recently about affiliate things or joint venture things, or people always reach out to me and say they want to speak at my conference. That's really lovely. Most of them don't even know what the conference is about or who I am, but they see that I have a conference and they reach out, or they want to be on the podcast. And I've actually sent a bunch of messages in the last couple of weeks to say, I'm really not interested, please don't contact me again, because the person who's reaching out to me didn't take the time to get to know who I am. They didn't take a lot of the times in their pitch to speak at my event, they're talking about things that I actually don't agree with, or sales strategies that I find particularly appalling. I had someone reach out and say, I'd love to teach NLP in sales. Now, if you listen to me talk for more than 15 minutes, I will generally say I disagree with the use of neuro-linguistic programming in the sales process. So I said, please don't reach out to me again. I consider this spam. And I've been much more upfront about saying no to things. Now, granted, there are times where I say no and it's a hard no, and sometimes there's, can you get back to me in a few months about this? Or, it sounds really interesting, it's not a fit right now, get back in touch next year. So you can find ways to say no that are nice and creative, nice and gentle, don't always have to be a hard no, but do remember that no is a complete sentence. So if it feels appropriate to you, say, no thanks. You're allowed to just say no thanks. You do not have to justify why you are saying no to that particular thing. And then tip number 5 is boundaries. So as my business grows, I'm getting better and better at being really clear on my boundaries. And I actually have a really fun thing that I like to say to the members of my courses and my VIP clients. And I say to them, my boundaries are my responsibility. So if you feel like you want to reach out to me or there's something that you want to ask, I would rather that you ask, and I can just say, no, that's for the group, or I can't help you with that unless you purchase some VIP time, or we'll need to save that for a session. I would rather we have that upfront conversation than you sit back and go, oh, I don't know if I can ask that, or I don't know if I can reach out to Tash. So I say to people, and I'm very upfront about this, I say, if you feel like you want to reach out to me, go for it, remembering that my boundaries are my responsibility. And I may say to you, that's best discussed in the group. Or I may say to you, I can't assist you with that. Or I may say to you, we need to save that for a one-on-one session. So I'm creating this environment with my clients in my group programs and my one-on-one clients where it's okay for us to say no to each other, that we accept and acknowledge each other's boundaries, and we are prepared to hear back from someone, we'll have to save that for a session. That is such a beautiful thing. We're living in a world now where we are able to establish those boundaries, we can support each other, and when people say no to me, I absolutely respect and applaud that. I love that people have these beautiful boundaries around what they do and don't want to participate in and what they will and won't do. And that is totally fine. So have a think about where maybe your boundaries are getting a little bit walked over, or maybe you haven't been clear about them. And it doesn't have to be a bad thing that you put those boundaries up. You can put up those boundaries in a really loving and connecting way. And when I say to my students, particularly when they first join the Takeoff program and they hear me say, my boundaries are my responsibility, it's not your job to work out whether that's a boundary or not. If you think that you want to reach out to me and you're not 100% sure, just reach out. Knowing that if I say no, it's no biggie. I'm not going to get upset at you. I'm just letting you know where the boundary is. And people say to me, oh my gosh, it's such a relief to hear someone modeling those boundaries. Thank you for modeling those boundaries with me. I love the way that you articulated that. I'm going to do that with my clients as well. Beautiful. Let's role model that for each other. All right, lovely ladies, there's my 5 tips on how to create more time so you can focus on those important actions in your business. Now, what I want you to do after you've finished listening to this podcast episode is come on over to the Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs Facebook community, our beautiful lady posse, and I want you to use hashtag podcast and let us know you've been listening to episode number 184, and what are you going to do to create more time, and what are you going to do with that time? I want you to come and make a commitment, because it's all well and good for you to consume this content, but we want to put it into action. So come on over to the Heart Center community, use hashtag podcast let us know you've been listening to 184 on the podcast, and you are going to commit to creating more time with one of these strategies. Which one are you going to choose? How are you going to commit to creating that more of that time for the important activities in your business? And then number 2, what is the thing that you're creating more time for? Is it being more consistent with your content creation? Is it scheduling posts in advance? Is it batching something up? Is it that book project you've been meaning to work on? Is it client care and follow up with leads? These actions are the ones that create the results in your business, and particularly in the long term for most of us, but also in the short term. So make sure, let's start prioritizing them. Until next time, beautiful lady, I've been Tash Corbin, and you have been a fabulous listener, and I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.